Wow.
It-
Yeah,
it's so simple and so masterful.
Oh, so
Yeah.
simple, so beautiful.
I
Yeah.
think I think it was Tom Morello who said that folk music not only was the music of the people, but it was three chords and the truth.
Yeah. Well, that's what they say Nashville, based on three chords and the truth.
I found it, that it's universal in the sense that it's comforting and it addresses universal themes that everyone has troubles or problems and sometimes don't necessarily know how to deal with them. And he's so melodic and the chorus repeats itself. Just let it be, let it be. So he poses a question, he poses an answer, and he addresses all bunch of things that everybody feels. And so that for me makes it universal. And plus his voice is wonderful.
Well, I I once a week I practice Zen meditation. And what's the whole basis of Zen meditation? Let it be.
Yeah.
It's like stop the chatter in the mind and just let the truth, no chords of the truth would be Zen, I guess. But um, but yeah, it's a very universal message. Now, musically, why is it so well constructed? Why does it 60 years later every bit as effective as it was when they wrote it?
Uh, what do you think, Gail? Gail's always got a great answer.
Gail left and Leslie's here.
There's something to the beat that like your heart beats, just steadily beats.
Mhm.
And so does this song. It just sort of beats like a heartbeat. And it kind of carries you along with it. I just think it's got a nice beat to it that keeps me um, going along, just going along.
Well, that's an important part of uh 60s and music ever since then. The groove or the basic rhythmic foundation has always been important. And today, groove is so important, it's almost the most important thing. Visuals and the underlying rhythm. Um, but I was thinking, what are some other musical aspects?
The lyrical hook is used in two different ways. One is a punctuation, and at the end of uh, the phrase, and
Mhm.
the other is an expounding on it to to reinforce the idea that regardless of what's going on, sometimes you just have to let it be. And so I think the punctuation as well as the elongation to as a reminder. And so both of them stick in your brain.
No, I definitely agree. In fact, one of the things that I've talked about, and I will talk about till I'm blue in the face whenever we talk about songwriting, is about hooks. And there, there's what they call a button hook, which is at the end of a section, and there's a button at the end of the verse. And then in the chorus, there is the repetitive hook. And how many times they sing, let it be, let it be, let it be, let it be. There will be an answer, let it be. And you hear it once, you can sing it. It's it just it's that memorability, but it's also the other aspect, and that's the McCartney contribution. It's um, again, he was called the Mozart of the 20th century. Just an incredible melodic gift. And
Because yeah, because when you think about it, when in the repetitive section, it's not like you're just repeating the same melodic line. There's a rise to it, and so it takes you along up that journey and expands on it. So repetitive, but not dull.
Well, I studied when I went to UCLA. I studied classical composition, and actually, I was very fortunate. I had got all my harmony classes back when I was in high school. So when I went right into upper division, I went to a composition class with a fairly well-known composer, and one of the things he talked about was melodic level, and it's like, let it be is there, let it be, let it be, let it be. Each one of those is on a different note. They could have gone, let it be, let it be, let it be, let it be. I destroyed it. I did to Mozart what Salieri did in the movie, right? um, and the thing is, a hack musician or an inexperienced melody writer won't put levels into it. And I remember getting red penciled on some of my initial assignments. Is like, no, change the note, make it higher than expected, make it lower than expected. Give it, one of my favorite terms is architecture. Give it shape.
Peaks and valleys.
Yes, thank you. I remember when I used to teach all the time, I used to talk, is your song a mini mall, a skyscraper, or a shapely office building? If it's a mini mall, you could drive past it and never notice it. And unfortunately, that's what I hear in half of today's music. That's the one thing that I miss the most is melodic shape and melodic architecture. Because it stays with the same 3 to 5 or 6 notes. It doesn't go out of that. In fact, when I taught at Musicians Institute in Hollywood, they wanted me to work with their singer-songwriters because they were writing songs for themselves, and they were writing songs. They had wonderful voices, and they wrote songs with only 5 or 6 notes of range. They didn't show themselves off. Their singing skills were far above their melodic skills. And this is where I wish people in the industry, before they release some of their recordings, would consult with the cat, so to speak. That's what I was always. I did have a lot of people back when I was very active in LA that would come to me before they did their final recording because I could give them just that little extra shape or touch.
I do a lot of listening panels and such.
Yeah.
And I'm called in not just for performance aspects, but also for the songwriting aspects and such. And there is something that young artists have that keeps them from actually really pulling it all together and allowing their innate abilities and their very studied abilities as well to shine. And I don't completely understand that, but I remember my vocal coach one day saying to me about a particular song that I was singing with one of the bands. He says, your voice is wasted on that song. I said, yeah, but people want to hear it. He said, well, then you have to do something more to make it your own.
Very wise advice, for sure.
And that's part of the problem, is that when you have young songwriters, many of them don't really fully understand structure and the things that make for a successful song. So they're taking whatever is comfortable to them and trying to work their song around that. It's something that I learned from one of Stephen Sondheim's master classes, that he said that he never wrote while sitting at the keyboard because he didn't want to be bound by the limitations of his hands. And that's when I realized I wrote one kind of song when I played the guitar, and I wrote a different kind of song when I played the piano. So I just stopped using any instrument, and all of a sudden my melodies were going all over the place where I never thought they would go. And they were much better songs, and which is why I was able to write 4 fully produced musical theater pieces because I didn't allow myself any longer to be bound by my own limitations. They got to let that imagination fly, and I think that's what the Beatles did. Is that they just went. They didn't think about what they couldn't do. They just thought, "Oh, this would be kind of cool to do. Let's try that." And without fear, just stepping right into it and taking the whole thing. I mean, you know, uh, everything from English music hall to sitar and esoteric, and to go from "I want to hold your hand" to where they ended up was an astronomical amount of growth, and they did it by being open.
And they did it by being open, and they also, where they say part of it's inspiration and part of it's perspiration.
Yep, they
And,
worked hard at it.
and for instance, Salieri, the first thing, and when I first started, sometimes I would do that. Whatever came to me, that was it. I didn't sculpt it any further. I didn't push it any further. And then the more I developed my craft and my knowledge of songwriting, I would say, yes, I could go down to that note. What if I push it up to the next inversion, up to the next position of the chord, up a third or up a fifth? And it's like, oh, that's more exciting. What if I put it down? And it's like sometimes taking something down rather than up, it can be equally memorable and exciting. Again, architecture.
One of the things too is that songwriters have a tendency to look at their songs as their children, and that they don't want to change anything about them. They get stuck in it. Now, as a writer, as an author, I have an editor. I have an editor who says, you need to switch this around, try doing it this way. You might not want to use that voice in this, and so you're constantly rewriting, constantly. I mean, I went through, I don't know how many drafts on my first book. It's getting easier as I go along with the next ones and such, but it's this growth that happens by editing yourself, by rearranging things. And songwriters have this iron grip on what comes out of them. It's like, okay, I'm going to vomit this out. And then that's where it has to stay because it's all of my heart. And instead of really looking at it as, yes, it might be your heart, but you may need to structure how you are saying those things in order to capture the listener's attention.
Well, I totally agree. And you just reminded me of something. There's a book I should have included in the bibliography that I sent you guys. It's The Beatles, the authorized biography. And they talked about how each one of the songs were written, the process, the creative process. And the Beatles pushed themselves. The other thing about the fact that they were so popular, they couldn't go anywhere without being deluged. They had to stay in their hotel rooms or mansion rooms or whatever. And they had all this time on their hands. So what did they do? They spent the time working on their craft, writing a lot. They were sort of victims of their own success, which put them in a position. They used their time wisely to grow and to push. Okay, let's go on to another song. And I'm going to do one that is much less conventional than Let It Be. And let's see what you think about this one here.